Hello, and welcome to Inventors Helping Inventors. I'm your host, Alan Beckley, inventor of the Wonder Wallet. If you're an inventor searching for proven ways to make money with your invention, if you dream to see your product selling in stores everywhere, you've come to the right place. There's no better place to get help than from experts, inventors who've already achieved success. Every week, I interview successful inventors, asking them the questions you want to know. Tune in to learn from the experts so you can get your invention out of the tank and into the bank.
If you can learn how to almost coexist with those negative thoughts, let them go. You can't stop them, so to speak, but if you stop listening to them or letting them drive you, it's surprising what you'll find that you can do that you don't think you can do. I never thought I would be sitting here talking to you about this. Never.
IHI Nation, don't you absolutely hate to miss out on something good? I want to share with you that my premier training for inventors, the Inventors Bootcamp, well, registration closed at midnight Sunday, last night, so you just missed out. However, I provide for listeners to my podcast only. If you act quickly and you're listening on Monday, the 9th of June, you'll get an extension. You can still sign up to join the Inventors Bootcamp. So you'll get 5 days of live Zoom meeting training. It's going to teach you how to compare and contrast your invention versus the competition to make it stand out. And then from that, you'll create a clear, concise, and compelling 30-second pitch for your product, the kind that gets attention with marketers. So how do you sign up and still get into the bootcamp? Make sure to register today, Monday, the 9th of June. Just go to alanbeckley.com/bootcamp. And oh, by the way, all this training, the 5 days of live Zoom meetings, is available to you for only $47. But you can't wait. This is the last day, and it's only open to podcast listeners like you on Monday, June 9th. Again, to join us tonight in the bootcamp that starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, just go to alanbeckley.com/bootcamp. Many podcast listeners just like you have joined us in the bootcamp and are making progress and gaining traction. I look forward to seeing you in the bootcamp tonight. Welcome to episode number 516. Today, I interview Jenny De Leon. Jenny De Leon grew up in the small Midwestern town of Rushville, Illinois. She obtained her undergraduate degree at Western Illinois University in Macomb, Illinois, and her graduate degree from Lindenwood University in St. Charles, Missouri. She moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and pursued her career as an IT consultant. This background led her to develop a love for process improvement and to become an inventor. As a seasoned business consultant who has traveled extensively, Jenny experienced firsthand the challenges of maintaining her skincare routine while on the go so she could show up looking and feeling her best. During frequent business trips, Jenny hated what she called the luggage Tetris, trying to cram all her skincare products into an already overstuffed carry-on bag. Unwilling to compromise, Jenny embarked on a journey of innovation to make traveling with her favorite skincare products easier. Today, Jenny De Leon is a visionary behind Repeatable Travel Systems, an ingenious solution redefining how you travel with your favorite skincare products when you fly carry-on. With Repeatable, women everywhere can compactly pack their skincare products easily into the TSA-mandated quart bags, saving their carry-on bags for everything else. You'll want to listen to this entire interview where Jenny describes how she discovered the frustrating compromises women face when traveling without a full complement of their favorite skincare products. Also, how she overcame her early frustrations with developing her first working prototype when she discovered a simple model for her first Frankenstein prototype. And finally, how she dealt with the negative thoughts and impatience during her long wait for her 4 patents to issue. Now let's get right to our interview with Jenny DeLeon. Jenny DeLeon, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast with us today.
Thanks for having me, Alan. I'm excited.
You bet. Jenny, can you share a bit of your background with our listeners? Where did you grow up and go to school, and what did you do before you became an inventor? Could you share that with us?
Yes, so I grew up in a small town in Illinois. My parents owned an Ace Hardware store, and I grew up working there, doing everything from cleaning to stocking shelves, ordering inventory. So I always had that entrepreneurial spirit from a young age. After college, I moved on. Lived several places. Right now, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. And my background for the past 15 years has been in IT consulting. So a lot of process focused stuff, working with different business units to improve processes. I love anything about processes. So talking about processes is something that I absolutely love. My background is primarily, most recently, in IT consulting.
Thanks for sharing that with me. And I like the fact that because you worked in a hardware store, you really had early entrepreneurial experience, basically. And also, I too have a kind of similar love for just generally process improvement. When I was employed by others for many years in telecom sector, around 25 years, one of the things that I would do is I would find a way to improve some of the key processes. And ultimately, my employers actually did appreciate that, even though it wasn't my official job. I'd find a better way to tighten up or make it where it was less problematic.
Yeah, I think I learned that really young working at the store from my parents because I worked with a lot of farmers that would come in the store and I was young, I was female. They didn't always take me seriously. So I don't know, from a young age, it felt like I was always trying to show them I could do something that they didn't think I could do. And a lot of times that was finding things that they needed or finding better ways. If somebody would come in with X problem, I would find Y for the solution. So I feel like I started doing that at a really young age, like getting really creative, figuring out ways to use tools in different ways and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that's such a great example because it shows how, in some regards, you were not taking it full value, but you proved yourself in a youthful state, and that has actually ultimately served you really well as an adult.
Yeah, I would say it has for sure.
I'd like to ask, could you briefly share with our listeners the aha moment of the event that happened that caused you to invent your solution to a travel dilemma for women? And that is your product, Repeatable Travel Systems. Could you spend a couple minutes and share with us that aha moment?
Yes. So, as I mentioned, as an IT consultant, I've done that for a long time now. For a period of my life, I was a business traveler. So, I was getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning on Monday, flying out to the client site, getting home at midnight on Thursday. During that time, my life it was like it was on an assembly line. I didn't have a lot of time for a lot of extra things, right? Because everything had to line up perfectly. And so during this time when I was traveling, I'm traveling in business attire. I wanted to show up to the client site and look good. But the problem I had and all of my friends had that were traveling was we could not bring all of our skincare products in that quart bag that TSA requires that you have when you fly with a carry-on. And anybody who's been a business traveler knows if you're traveling every week, you're absolutely not checking a bag. That's a huge no-no, like in the consulting world, especially if you're traveling with other people or people are there to pick you up. Nobody wants to wait on somebody to get their bag from the carousel. So we all struggled with this problem of not being able to take our skincare products. And it felt to me like a lot of compromise. It was one of those situations where it's like you just have to find things that to make it work. Right. Like I did, like I mentioned, growing up at my parents' store. Back then I was always finding ways to make things work, right? Cobbling things together with duct tape or some other way that I needed to do. And so it became like that in my routine every week. And then I found myself showing up at client sites again, wanting to look professional, feel like I looked put together, but always feeling like something was missing because I didn't have my full skincare routine.
This is such a great story, the way you illustrate that. And you've actually clearly answered for me. In fact, part of the next question I was going to ask you, and that is, how did the TSA restrictions, what you call the messy quart bag, impact you? And you made it really crystal clear that you had to make really compromises. You were traveling, as you said, in that job in particular, you were early Monday morning, you were out of the office, heading out, going to the airport, and didn't get back till sometimes midnight on Thursday night or something like that. So you had to put together whatever it was you were going to take for your business trip. You had that to go with you. And the constraint, as you said, and I've never had anybody express it to me quite like this, but I like that nobody likes to wait for somebody at the airport for them to get their bags from baggage
Mhm.
claim. You have to jam everything into this little tiny carry-on bag. And now your quart bag that you have really is just not sufficient for most women, maybe all women, to carry cosmetics and things like that that they want to carry with them because they're too large in size for it to fit in there with the other things you have to have. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think for clothes, if you're a business traveler and you're traveling every week, I think it's easy to pack your clothes and have a uniform, so to speak. I doing like air quotes. So you bring a certain number of pairs of pants, shirts. That's pretty easy to get going in a routine. And a lot of this, why I designed this is because it came out of my love of processes because I had a process for myself every week, right? I would get home, do laundry, X, Y, and Z, whatever down the line. I had the process for my clothes, but I just couldn't get the process down for my skincare because nothing fit my actual needs. It felt like the products that were on the market, it was outdated how they're designed, right? It wasn't meant for modern day women who travel, who spend money on skincare because they want to, they can, they enjoy that. And it just felt like the products that were on the market just didn't fit real women's skincare routines. And that was the struggle that I faced.
Out of curiosity, as you're describing this dilemma to me, I had a question came to my mind is, did you ever find if out of nothing else besides frustration, you would get to your arrival point for the better part of a week and you would just go buy some skincare products so that you were able to have what you needed because you weren't able to carry them on the airplane? Did that ever happen to you?
So it didn't happen so much with skincare. Sometimes it would with hair products, let's say, like different things that you could easily buy at any Target or Walgreens or whatever. But the skincare products were always different because sometimes I was getting those from an esthetician who I was going to. So I couldn't just go to any store and buy it. It either had to be bought through the esthetician or online. And so then the shipping, and where was I going to ship it to and would it be there and all trying to juggle all that. It was easier with the hair care products, I would say, than skincare. I never found, at least for the products that I use, generally couldn't just go to any store and buy them. They were more specialty.
So now let's move forward and talk about, can you share with our listeners how your product Repeatable addresses these issues to make traveling for women much easier and less stressful, where you can actually carry the things you need in a very limited space of say, a quart bag?
Yeah, I actually started my prototype for my product with contact lens cases. So everybody knows what they look like. Even if you don't have contacts, they're little container, two sides with a lid that screws off. I had used those for a while and I thought they worked well, but the problem was they would fall down to the bottom of my bag. I couldn't label them properly. I wouldn't know what was there and would just end up throwing it away and starting over again when I got to the point where I couldn't remember what any of it was. So I used that model, the contact lens model, and I worked with a prototyper here in Nashville. And we tried a lot of different things. But what we ended up coming up with was, if you think about it as three contact lens cases stacked up on a tray that's held together with magnets, and then underneath the contact lens cases on that tray, there's a little indentation for a spatula. So that way you can use the spatula. You don't have to dig your fingers into the container to get your product out. And this is a big deal for women because we don't want to be contaminating our product. We don't want to, if we're sticking our fingers in or having it all over our hands, if we're in between appointments or something. So we came up with this prototype that surprisingly worked. I loved it, and I still love it today. I love what we came up with. I think it completely solves the pain point that I was facing.
What I particularly like about what you just shared with me is from what I heard, your Frankenstein prototype was a contact lens case.
Yes.
So it was a starting point. But then you saw all the shortcomings. It's not
Mhm.
labeled, it only holds so much. How do I get the product out of there? And I don't want to put my fingers in there and contaminate it, et cetera, et cetera. You thought, well, there's something here. It's compact and you can carry smaller quantities, which is something you wanted to be able to do, but it's not sufficient. And seems like from there you said, how can I take this as a starting point and then convert it into something that is truly functional on the levels that I need? And then again, working with a prototyper, et cetera. Is that a kind of an accurate way to describe what you did?
Yes, it is. And I actually, with the prototyper, when I went in with my bits and pieces of how I saw it working, I honestly felt so foolish doing it. I felt like this is never going to work. Nobody's going to understand this. This is why am I even doing this? I had all of these negative things in my head leading up to this. But when I went in there and I explained it to this guy, and he's a guy, right? So he's not my he doesn't this isn't my market, right? He doesn't face this problem when he travels, right? But I was pleasantly surprised at how he pretty much instantly got the concept. He instantly started rattling off some different like ways we could put it together and structure it. And the best feeling in the world was walking when he called me a couple weeks later and I walked out of his shop with my prototype in hand. Like that feeling, I still think about that because I couldn't believe it was real. I couldn't believe I'd actually done it, but I did.
Yeah. So you reach the point where you say, now it's really real. I've finally got something that truly works. I particularly like the concept of having a spatula included because that makes that's like the icing on the cake, not only having access, but not making sure you don't have to contaminate it and
Mhm.
having a way to get just the amount out that you need of each one. You also spoke to an anxiety I think almost every inventor faces, and that is he or she is creating something that really hasn't quite existed before. And we get in our heads and we start thinking, oh, this is no good. Nobody's going to
Mhm.
like this. Did you
Yeah.
ever have any of those feelings?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Or maybe it's just me, but if it's you, there's going to be thousands or millions of others that are facing the same problem.
Yeah, the mindset that'll make or break you in this with your invention and what you went through to bring that to market. You've got a big part of this whole process is you've got to learn how to talk to yourself in a way that you don't talk yourself out of it. I remember talking to my dad about this and just all the stuff that you go through, right? Inventing something isn't a common thing that people do, right? So there's not a lot of people that get what you do until you get into this and find your tribe, like your listeners on your podcast, right? Get around people who are doing that and understand it. Then you start to realize these thoughts you have, you're not alone in this. And I remember telling my dad about this about it's a lonely process. I think especially at first until, like I said, you find your tribe. And so it's easy to talk yourself out of it and tell yourself you can't do it. It's a bad idea, this and that. But what I've come to learn is if you can learn how to almost coexist with those negative thoughts, let them go. You can't stop them, so to speak. But if you stop listening to them or letting them drive you, it's surprising what you'll find that you can do that you don't think you can do. I never thought I would be sitting here talking to you about this. Never. But I just didn't quit. I just kept going and I didn't let that voice win. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons in pretty much in life, but especially when you invent something.
I think I heard on a podcast, maybe Marie Forleo talked about the ugly roommate.
Yeah.
That voice in your head is like the ugly roommate, like saying, what makes you think you can do this? When was
Mhm.
the last time you ever did something? How'd that work out? So we all seem to face that. And you talked about so many inventors face this as well. It's a lonely process, especially in the beginning, because it's really unique. Not many people do inventing. And I was just going to add as a second thought to that, and that is, I think you begin to cross over to point when suddenly you have some buyers or some others that begin to say, wow, this is fantastic. Man, I really like this. And now it gives you validation. Did you find that to be the case?
Yes, I did. For me at the beginning, I chose to get my patents first. I have 4 patents, 2 design, 2 utility on my invention, and I chose to get my patents first before I even did any prototyping. So that was a long process. That took me close to 6 years for all of that. So during that time, I wasn't talking to people about it either because I was going through the patent process. I didn't want to get used to just talking about it with anybody and everybody. So I was trying to keep it under wraps. So there was that element of it for me where I wasn't I had this idea, I was excited, I wanted to tell people, but I was waiting until my patents were further along in the process before I started getting the prototype and talking about it. So that loneliness and that feeling of, "Oh, is this a good idea? Is it not?" I didn't actually get the validation until way down the line, until, like I said, year 5 or 6, whenever my patents were complete. And once I started getting that, actually, I just came back from a conference earlier in May, and the best validation for me is when I show somebody my product and their eyebrows raise up, like, in surprise, like, in delight, like happiness that they found something because they get it. That for me is the best feeling.
Yeah, absolutely is. And so I wanted to flip to the other side a little bit, and that is compared to your product, what is the competition, relatively speaking? What other products are out there that, in some fashion, at least attempt to address what your product does? And what would you say are their shortcomings compared to your product, Repeatable? Could you share that differentiation a little bit with our listeners?
Yes. The products on the market today, so everybody knows you go to Target, Walmart, Walgreens, wherever, and you go to the travel section, and they have a clear case with 4 or 5 bottles in there, and each bottle holds 3.4 ounces, whatever the TSA limits are. Everybody knows those. Those are, I call them like no-name brands, right? They're just mass produced. You can buy them on Amazon. There's also a product called Cadence, which is the containers, they have varying sizes, but they snap together in this magnetic system. There's other products out there that are small containers that maybe stack up on top of each other. Some form like a hexagon. But ultimately, none of those products solve the actual issue of the frustration of packing the quart bag. That was my whole intent and purpose of why I invented my product, was to solve that frustration. Because all of the others so far that I've seen, they're not addressing so you have these bigger containers, but I need to be able to take other products with it, right? So my product, you're able to hold 6 different products in a slim, organized system that's magnetic, snaps together, fits easily in your quart bag, and then gives you plenty of room for other products. So I've done packing demos where I'll show I'm able to take anywhere between 14 to 16 products in that quart bag, depending on volume and exactly what it is that I need. So I feel like with the competitors' products, they're just not addressing that actual true pain point, which is that complete frustration of trying to find other travel sizes or trying to fit more products in the quart bag. And I feel like that's really what I set out to solve and what I was able to achieve with Repeatable.
It's a great story. And as you're describing it to me, I was thinking about something I often talk to inventors about, and it's what I call the user experience. And if you look at it from the user experience perspective of what is she most frustrated with, these other products seem to be, here's a way to compactly put these things where you can carry them somewhere. That's not the real problem. The real problem is we don't want more stuff to fill up your already limited space. Carry-on bag. Now here's some more things to stuff in that carry-on bag. You say, take this limited space of the quart bag that right now you just can't get your skincare and other products to fit in there. Find a compact way that in that small space, you can include that. And now you still got the usual amount of space in your carry-on bag.
Yes, and I call it like luggage Tetris, right? Where we're trying to slim down everything and tuck everything, roll our clothes, do this and that. We do it in every other part of packing. It just didn't seem to be, that concept wasn't introduced in packing the quart bag. And to me, that was the most important when I was, like I said, when I was a business traveler. So being able to, I think, also show people that once people see it in action, like I said, the eyebrows go up and they get it. And then you can see that you can actually take more. And my product is designed for the business traveler who's gone 2 to 4 nights a week, somewhere in that range. That's the sweet spot for the product. And it's actually surprising with most of our products, we actually don't need to bring as much as we think we do. And the other issue I always found is when I brought more of my products, they just ended up going to waste when I got home because I never ended up getting them out of that travel container. So we really try to avoid that as well with repeatable to just eliminate that waste that is so frustrating with traveling and trying to navigate the TSA rules.
I love that phrase, luggage Tetris. I don't believe I've ever heard that before. I think that's such a visual image because Tetris, there's only a limited space and it's all got to fit together. So it's
Yes.
really very descriptive. I want to speak for a couple minutes something every inventor faces, and that is challenges in developing and marketing their inventions. What would you say has been your biggest challenge with developing repeatable, and how were you able to overcome that?
Yeah, as I think I mentioned, I have no background in manufacturing or production or anything of that nature. So getting the patents was actually relatively easy. I did have an issue with my last patent where I had to go several rounds with the patent office, and I was firm in my belief that they'd issued 3 other patents. So I was like, I'm not going to stop now and let them tell me that my fourth one is somehow different than the others. So I fought with the patent office to get that fourth patent, and I was able to do that. After I had my patents, I was, okay, now what? What do I do next? Where do I go? I had tried to find manufacturers locally for injection molding. Wasn't really having a lot of luck there. So I ended up working with a company that helped me actually get my product in hand, my actual inventory. And I think after I got my inventory, then again, it was kind of like that day that I walked out with the prototype. And so now I have my first round, my actual inventory in hand, and it's a surreal moment because it's, oh my gosh, this is real, right? I really have this. I can really do this. And so I think one of the biggest challenges I've had is it's not really change management, but change management with explaining my product since it is slightly different and it is a different way to look at packing than what has been on the market for some time. So I think I've been working through a lot of that different messaging to try to explain it in a better way, simpler way. So I think for me, probably that's been one of the biggest challenges is just the finding that right message to connect with my audience.
Yes, and a thought that occurred to me as you were describing the challenge of basically communicating where people fully understand. I would extend it in the sense of getting them to see the problem the way you see the problem.
Yes.
So, for example, I can imagine you pitching to a company for licensing and them saying, Ms. De Leon, there are a fair number of products out there now that in some fashion handle this sorts of things. What makes yours so specific and unique? But if you were to attack it in a little different direction and say, currently everything on the market is additive into your existing carry-on bags, and you don't need more things added into your carry-on bag. You need something very compact that is specifically designed for the purposes that you need that can go in that quart bag. And then you can say, the challenge is the quart bag. You need something that can fit in the quart bag and give you everything you need access to. And then when they get the understand the problem, now they're going to look at it in a different way.
Yes, I just wrote that down about we don't need more things because that's it. More isn't better in this case. When we're traveling and we're trying to travel light, more definitely isn't better. And conveying that, like you're saying, and to understand the problem and how the product solves the problem. Yeah, that's obviously it's the key with anything.
And in fact, I can imagine you in your license pitch using that phrase, luggage Tetris.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah. As we roll towards a close, I'd like to ask you, are there any parting words you'd like to leave us with?
Yes. So this has been such a journey for me, and I've learned so much what not to do and some of what to do. But I guess I would say to your audience, for anybody that's listening that has an idea, you just have to go for it sometimes. There's nothing special about any knowledge I had or any even me in particular, right? The way I brought my product to life was I just kept doing the next logical thing. That's what I would tell myself, just do the next logical thing. And when I kept doing that and I didn't quit or give up, that's why we're sitting here talking today. So I think that having that attitude of moving forward, even if it doesn't feel like you're doing very much, but moving forward and just not quitting and not giving up is one of the most important things that you can do as an inventor.
I also like that thought process. Just kept doing the next logical thing. Thinking all the people I've had on the podcast, if I've ever had anybody summarize it quite like that. But I think that is actually so accurate.
Yeah, it saved me a lot of times because it got me out of the overwhelm. It got me back into that process mindset. And it helped me to see that some days the next logical thing is just a small thing. And some days the next logical thing is actually a big thing. But neither one it's not every day isn't a big thing and every day isn't a small thing. It's just whatever that next logical thing is to move forward.
Jenny, my last question for you then is, how can our listeners reach you if they have other questions or would like to purchase from you?
Yes, I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has about inventing, about the product, about any of it. My website is repeatabletravel.com. You can contact me on there. All my social media is on there, and that's where you can find out more about the product.
And just to be clear for our listeners, repeatable travel is like repeatable without the E, right? So repeatabletravel.com, right?
That is correct. Now, I will say I also have the domain repeatable with an E on the end, travel.com, and it just redirects back to my main site. But there is when I started this, just real quick, I'll tell you, I had this idea for the name. The repeatable came from creating a repeatable process. That's where I got the name from. And I had this idea when I was first starting that it would be so cool to make repeatable as the phonetic spelling, like how it looks phonetically without the E on the end. And then as I got into it, I realized actually that's not very cool and it's going to be really annoying. But I'd already gotten too far down the line to change the name. So people ask me why the E isn't on the end, and that's why. It was something I thought was cool, but actually didn't end up cool. But, you just pivot and keep going.
Jenny, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today. Really enjoyed chatting with you and would like to reserve the opportunity, maybe another 6 months or a year, to connect with you again and see what you've got going on at that time. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, I'd absolutely love to come back. Thank you.
You bet. Summertime is upon us now. As an inventor, this is a perfect time to hone your marketing message, so you're ready to hit the ground running this year to approach companies with your product. Through premium coaching, I've helped quite a few inventors just like you to do just that, to create your clear, concise, and compelling marketing pitch. I'm happy to help you gain traction with your product, as I have for other podcast listeners. So if you're hearing, it's not really for us, it means your marketing message is unclear to them. It's not compelling. That's why they say no. If you'd like to know more, to see if premium coaching might be a fit for you, just email me at alan@alanbeckley.com and put premium coaching in the subject line. I'll get back with you to set up a Zoom meeting. But don't wait, as I have room to take on only 2 more clients at this time. So again, just email me at alan@alanbeckley.com and put premium coaching in the subject line, and I'll get back with you to set up a Zoom meeting. Thanks so much for tuning in to Inventors Helping Inventors. If you like the show, please tell your friends about it. Make sure to subscribe in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss a single episode. Talk to you soon.